Okay, for all the senior leaders out there, you know the conversation around AI governance is shifting. For years, it's been all about principles, right? Things like fairness and transparency. But 2026 is shaping up to be the year that governance gets teeth. We're talking enforceable rules and very real consequences. So let's dive into this critical shift from policy to proof.
And this quote just nails it. It really captures the entire idea. It is no longer going to be enough to have inspiring principles written down on a slide somewhere. The new focus, from regulators, from your customers, from your partners, is on demonstrable evidence. What can you prove your systems are doing, especially when something goes wrong?
So what does this shift actually look like in the real world? Well, it means AI governance is finally graduating from being a theoretical exercise to becoming a day-to-day operating model. You need to think less about abstract ethics boards and more about the nitty-gritty operational reality of on-call rotations, incident templates, and auditable logs. This slide really breaks it down nicely. Just look at the two columns. We're moving away from governance as intent, the principles and all the hopes we have before deployment, and we're moving directly into governance as proof, which is all about hard evidence and post-deployment reality. Regulators, they're not just asking about your intentions anymore. They're investigating what happens after an incident. What failed, who was impacted, and most importantly, what evidence do you have to explain it? And let's be clear, regulators aren't just making these rules up in a vacuum, not at all. They are reacting to specific, repeated patterns of harm. These real-world incidents are now directly shaping formal governance expectations. So let's look at 4 key examples that are really driving this whole thing.
First up, identity deception. I'm talking about synthetic media, deepfake voice and video that makes it almost impossible to trust what you see or hear. And this tech is being used for absolutely everything from financial fraud to political manipulation.
So when you have harms like fraud and impersonation, the regulatory concern becomes pretty obvious. Disclosure and traceability. They want to know, where did this synthetic content come from? And for executives, well, this creates a whole new kind of accountability for the content that's moving through your distribution channels.
Next on the list is enterprise compromise. This is where bad actors trick your AI into doing things it shouldn't. You've probably heard of prompt injection, or they use it to steal sensitive data, which we call data exfiltration. These risks are turning AI from just another feature into a major security boundary for your entire organization.
So the crucial point here is this. As soon as your AI is connected to sensitive data and can take actions on its own, regulators start seeing it as a privileged integration surface. And the executive implication is crystal clear. You have to manage your AI with the exact same discipline you apply to any other critical security boundary, no exceptions.
Okay, another major category is consumer harm. We're seeing courts and regulators more and more treat incorrect or misleading outputs from your AI systems as official statements from your company. It's not some experimental side project anymore. Let's just use that same framework. The harm is obvious. A customer gets wrong advice or is promised something your company can't actually deliver. The regulatory concern then is whether you had controls in place to prevent that from happening. And for executives, the implication is that you need rock-solid processes to both prevent these errors and fix them fast when they do occur. And finally, there's bias in decisions. The moment you use AI for consequential decisions, I'm talking about things like hiring, credit, housing eligibility, you are pulling that system directly into decades of established civil rights and consumer protection law.
The regulatory response here is pretty predictable, and it's demanding. The potential harm is, of course, discriminatory outcomes. The concern is rooted in decades of civil rights law. So the implication for you is you need to prove you've done impact assessments, you've given clear user notices, and this is the big one. You have the ability to audit and explain why a specific decision was made.
So, if you look across all these different incidents, a really clear set of common operational demands is starting to emerge from regulators all over the world. This is the why behind the big shift. So let's look at what's going to be expected of you in 2026.
These 6 points on the slide, they're really the fundamentals of the new expectations. Post-deployment monitoring, it's a duty now, not just a nice to have. You're going to need to be ready to fill out standardized incident reports on a very tight deadline. And that old answer of, oh, we tested it before release, that's just not going to fly anymore.
Let's just double-click on one of those key demands, provenance. This really comes down to the ability to answer a very basic but absolutely critical question during an incident. What exactly was running? As frameworks like Oasis Open's COSI are making clear, having a solid answer to this is just fundamental to any credible investigation.
And if you think these are just theoretical obligations, you might want to think again. In late 2025, a massive €120 million fine was issued under the EU's Digital Services Act, all for transparency breaches. This just goes to show that the era of theoretical rules is over. The penalties are very real and they are significant.
So, how do you actually prepare for this new reality? Well, it requires an operational playbook. We call it the Accountable Incident Model, and it's a practical framework for managing AI incidents in a way that will actually stand up to scrutiny.
This model gives you a repeatable process. It starts with defining your incidents, so everybody is speaking the same language. Step 2 is all about escalation, making sure the right people get involved fast. Now, step 3 is absolutely crucial. You have to preserve evidence immediately. Then you can move on to containment and structured reporting. And the final step is a learning loop with executive visibility, so you actually improve your controls over time. At peak Agile Solutions, we frame this as building evidence, not bureaucracy. It's about readiness, not red tape.
Okay, I know this can all feel like a lot. The natural question for any leader looking at this is simply, where in the world do you begin? How do you translate all these concepts into concrete action?
So let's make this really practical. Here is a 90-day readiness plan. Think of it as a set of mandates that any executive team should put in place this quarter to build a solid foundation for an accountable 2026.
Every single one of these 7 steps is designed to build the muscle for provable governance. Let's just walk through a few. Number 1, assign a single owner. A committee can't own an incident response. Number 2, create an inventory so you actually know what systems you're running. Number 4 is about getting those provenance basics in place so you can always answer what was running. And finally, number 7, run a tabletop exercise. You have got to practice before a real incident forces your hand.
Ultimately, 2026 isn't the year AI governance becomes trendy, it's the year it becomes accountable. Success won't be defined by how elegant your principles are, but by your ability to answer tough questions with hard evidence, especially when you're under pressure. The key takeaway is simple: start building that evidence now.